Ready? Hey Razzball, it's Nick, and I'm now in Chicago with my man Tom Jackson from Razzball. Tom, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty well, how are you?
I'm fantastic, and I'm really excited because we're actually here in Wrigleyville, checking out some of the local sports bars, right by, of course, Wrigley Field, which is a baseball mecca. I told you I'm sick of baseball in this one, guys. So we're going to get into some beautiful Goose Island brews in a couple minutes, but first, Tom, since we got you here, and since you know Chicago, I thought what we could do is talk about some of the players who play for the Cubs or the White Sox who might be available, and let's say either on the waiver wire or maybe available in trades, because I know you're really plugged in on those particular teams.
Sure.
But first, let me just take it in a different direction. I know when I talk with Gray and Rudy, especially Rudy, it's all about numbers, and I totally get that, and that's one of the great things about baseball. But I find that even though I'm not as plugged in as those guys, I can be competitive somewhat because I tend to go with my gut.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you get lost in numbers, and you and I chatted about that a couple times. So let's talk about Prince Fielder, a guy I was really high on coming into the year. Obviously, from a high-level view, it looks like, okay, he's going from, Detroit to Arlington, so, he's going to hit a lot more home runs, but I think sometimes there's even more to that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure, so, one of the things that was high in my mind is last year during the season when he struggled, and people were making a big deal about that.
Right.
He had a divorce, and that's something where, of course, a guy, these are people too.
Yep.
So, of course, things like that will affect them no matter, how much they try to maintain themselves as professionals.
So how much do you put into pure data versus gut calls?
I tend to side with data in most cases, but whenever there's an extreme life event or, whether it be changing from one team to another or having a divorce or a child or anything like that, that really can make a big difference, whether it's from season to season or month to month.
So let's talk about now a couple guys that are on the White Sox that are really interesting. Let's start with Diaza, who's hit a couple jacks already, which is pretty exciting. What do you think he's going to do this year for the White Sox?
I don't think anyone expected to see 3 home runs out of Diaza right now, but he's a pretty nice power speed guy. He might be, people are missing out on Shane Victorino right now in the DL. He's a guy where he could be a pretty decent replacement, and he's out there in a lot of leagues.
Another guy that's interesting on the White Sox is Adam Eaton. Obviously, we haven't seen what he's done yet, but that was a pretty big three-way trade that happened this year. What are you projecting for Adam Eaton this year? How do you think he's going to look in 2014?
Yeah, so for however much you like Diaza, I think Adam Eaton's a step above, clearly.
Really?
He's a guy who, he said he's going to try to run like wild. He's going to try to get on base as much as he can. He's not just concerned with batting average, he's concerned with on base. So, in those leagues, he's a guy you want to pay a little bit of attention to. He can get you some steals there. But, in Sox Park, it's a homer haven. So I think, somewhere in the teens of home runs really isn't out of the question.
Okay, one more White Sox question for you. So everyone thought Nate Jones was going to close at the beginning of the year. Yeah. They said it was Lindstrom. Where's that going to wind up?
Yeah, I don't know. Ventura's crazy. I think, Jones, I think it was his job to go back to after Lindstrom, but he's been giving up runs the past couple of days. So I still think it's going to be a moving situation where I think Jones, if he still puts together a couple decent outings over the next month or two, I don't expect much from Lindstrom. So I could see it going back to him maybe the end of May or so. But that's a situation, where you need to really pay attention to see if there's a new call-up or...
Is there anyone else potentially in the mix there?
There are a few different guys, but I'm not really sure whether, if anybody else has the inside role into that.
Okay. Let's switch to the Cubs now. A couple guys that are off to a good start. I know you and I talked about Ruggiano before.
Yeah.
You think he could go 2020?
Yeah, he's a guy where, the Cubs haven't used him much yet, and so some people might be panicking. He's available in many leagues, I think well over 90% of leagues. And he's a guy where he crushes lefties, so in daily leagues, that's something to look for.
Right.
But the Cubs are going to use him as more than just a platoon guy. They're going to plug him in when they can, and I think he'll be a guy that might start, at least 5 games out of every week. And he has some sneaky speed. He has a lot of power. Last year he had a pretty down year, but he's leaving Marlins Park. And actually the year before in Marlins Stadium, he had a really good year if you want to look at that, where he he had close to a 2020 year there. So I think in Wrigley it's very likely that he can do something like that.
Okay, a couple more guys. One, there was some preseason buzz towards the end of spring training with Junior Lake.
Yeah.
Had a great spring. Off to a so-so start.
Yeah.
So what do we expect from Junior Lake this year?
Yeah, I think he's a guy where, maybe 15, 20, something like that with a decent batting average. That's very reasonable. He's a guy where the Cubs are going to give him every chance to succeed. They want to get him in the lineup as much as they can. He's a guy where if you watch him closely, you can see he's got a lot of, what old school guys like to call tools. He's got speed, he's got some, sneaky power, and he really has, decent contact too. So and he's young. I think he's 23, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, 15, 20 as just a reasonable baseline. But he might even have upside from there. I wouldn't count on it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that. And so I think he's a great grab as a fifth outfielder.
And someone's got to get at bats until all these great prospects that the Cubs have come up through the system.
Yeah.
Okay, one more guy, Mike Olt. Great prospect when he came up, big power hitting prospect in the Rangers organization, came over to the Cubs. Apparently had some eye issues last year, which got worked out. Interesting guy. He's available almost everywhere. What do you think Mike Olt's going to do for the Cubs this season?
So Mike Olt's good because he connects back to what we were saying about different issues, potentially plaguing guys.
Well done, Tom.
Yeah. and he actually, I've been following. I'm a Cubs fan, so I was following that closely. It seems like last year he struggled because he got hit in the head with the ball. He had a minor concussion, and I guess it affected his tear ducts, where they were opened a little bit more, and he has very severe allergies. So because of that, his allergies were just, exponentially increased, and it was just affecting his vision. And so when he came to the Cubs, all they did was give him some allergy medication, and this spring he's claimed he's able to see just like before. And he's a guy where he had a lot of power. He's kind of like maybe I could see the three true outcomes type of player. He's going to strike out a lot. He might, at best hit 250, but he has 25, 30 homer power, and he's available in almost every league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Mike Olt. He had a really nice opposite field home run today in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So the power's there, the power's real. And like I said, someone's got to get these at bats until this wealth of prospect talent comes up from Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can follow you at Vote Tom Jacks, correct?
Yep.
And when does your column come out regularly on Razzball?
It'll be coming out every Saturday morning.
Every Saturday morning. So you can put the kid in front of the cartoons.
That's right.
You get the Tom Jacks column. We're good to go.
Absolutely.
Tom, thanks. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Yep.
So I'm almost ready for a beer. We're still going to talk to Scotty Prospect.
Yeah.
Although actually, one thing we got to figure out, is it Scotty Prospect or Scott the Prospect Whisperer? So we'll ask him now when we get to that right after this. Okay, we're going to talk White Sox and Cubs prospects with Scott the Prospect Whisperer from Razzball. But first, quick question. You couldn't wait 5 minutes till the end of the segment? I'm sitting here in this brew pub. I'm dying to have a beer, and you're sitting here next to me having one.
Nick, I couldn't wait to wet my whistle.
Fair enough. So, Scott, I got to give you a lot of credit because, all the guys at Razzball are obviously great writers, but you've got so much baseball experience, and you're so plugged in. You called Jose Fernandez way before anyone else. When you do your ETAs to the majors, you're usually bang on. So I got to give you a lot of credit. You're really good at this prospect thing, buddy.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it.
And you didn't even buy me a beer to get me to say that. So. Okay.
Maybe later.
So let's talk first White Sox. Who is at the top of the prospect food chain for the White Sox right now in terms of overall skill? Who's their best guy in the minors for fantasy?
Well, you got to look at their number one draft pick from 2013, a guy named Tim Anderson. He's playing in high A right now. He's a shortstop, and he's got phenomenal tools for the fantasy game. He can hit for power. He's got plenty of speed. If everything clicks for this guy, he could be a 25-25 shortstop, which is just, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, wow. Absolutely. But he's in high A, so ETA maybe a couple years?
Yeah, a couple years. I think 2016 would be a reasonable expectation for his arrival on the south side here.
Okay, good stuff. What about is there someone closer to the majors that might have a fantasy impact for the White Sox?
Yeah, sure. The guy they just traded from Arizona, Matt Davidson, he's a third baseman. He's got a guy with a lot of raw power, but he hasn't really tapped into it yet. He got a brief cup of coffee last year in the majors, but he's ready to come up and contribute. And you put him in that ballpark. U.S. Cellular is just a great hitter's ballpark, and you know that's going to be the key to unlocking some of his raw power.
I wonder if the White Sox right at this moment would rather have Addison Reed back.
Nah, I think they made the right move. They're smiling right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, now obviously there's much more to talk about on the Cubs side. The Cubs have been stockpiling elite, high-end talent, especially on the offensive end. So why don't you give me, and I'll let you take the reins of this, give me 3-4 guys. Obviously, some big names to know about like Baez, but give me a couple guys who have high ceilings and a couple guys who are close to having an impact.
Well, you got to start with Javi Baez. There's no one in minor league baseball who brings a higher ceiling than he does. His skill set, a lot of swing and miss. There is some risk involved, but if you're looking for the next number 1 perennial pick in fantasy baseball, look no further than Javi Baez.
Whoa. Number 1 perennial pick? I mean, is that the upside there?
That is the upside, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking Miguel Cabrera type power with a little bit of speed mixed in, and that's what Javi Baez brings to the table. It's just he's got a package that no one else in the minors can match right now.
What's his floor then?
His floor is relatively low in comparison to his ceiling. He's going to hit homers. I'm not sure how many bases he's going to steal, 10 to 20 probably in that range. And he might drag you down in average a little bit because of the swing and miss. And especially at first, pitchers might be able to exploit some holes in his swing. And it might be a learning curve for him, but at the same time, he's got that superstar skill set that could allow him to click right away.
You know what? Actually, I've mentioned this a couple times, but I saw him in spring training in Mesa this year at the new Cubs facility, and he looked like a taller Pudge Rodriguez at the same age,
Yeah, he doesn't have the prototype shortstop body.
No, he does not.
He looks like he's going to fit in better at third base or down the line, right?
Left field, maybe? Okay, give me another high ceiling prospect. I mean, there's a lot of them, so it's hard to choose, but give me another one right now.
Well, today is opening day in minor league baseball, and Chris Bryant made his Double-A debut.
Yep.
His first at-bat, he cracked a home run. This is a guy who has unlimited power. I mean, as much power as Baez has, Bryant's right there with him. Right. He can hit 30-plus home runs a year. That's an easy projection. And you know what? He's probably just about a late season call-up this year. So.
Really?
Yeah.
That soon?
It could be. I mean, who knows how the Cubs are going to value service time and that they are in rebuild mode. But I would say that a September call-up is reasonable.
Big, tall, lanky hitter. Actually, Rudy, when we watched the Cubs again, it reminded him a lot of a young Troy Glaus.
Oh yeah, sure. Definitely the size and the way he handles third base. He definitely reminds me of Glaus too.
Good stuff. Okay, now I want to get to a couple guys who are closer to the majors right now. I guess both of these guys could be close to the majors right now. Who might we see sooner rather than later for the Cubs who can have a fantasy impact?
How about shortstop Arizmendi Alcantara?
Okay.
He brings a nice, solid skill set. Nothing really high impact, but he's not going to hurt you anywhere.
Okay.
He's a guy you can plug in. He's going to steal some bases. He's going to hit for average. He's going to knock a few home runs too. I look for him to arrive in Wrigley probably in the summer months, June, July, around then. And he can definitely be of service in mixed fantasy leagues this year.
Okay, give me. I want to talk about Jorge Solar, who they paid a ton of money for last year. What's your thoughts on him?
Well, you know what? Soler is not a cost-controlled prospect, so
Good point.
So his broken leg.
Because he was a refugee from Cuba.
Right. He came from Cuba. The Cubs signed him to a lengthy contract, so they gave him a little bit of developmental cushion. But at the same time, broke his leg last summer, missed virtually the entire season. That sets him back, and considering they're paying him, good money right now, it's not ideal for the Cubs. Even so, he's a guy right in the same class with Bryant and Baez in terms of power. He can knock 30 home runs. I mean, he's just another guy who the Cubs have that just is oozing with 30-plus home run potential.
Unbelievable. Theo Epstein, what a job he's done. I mean, as Cub fans, you guys must be ecstatic.
Well, I'm not a Cubs fan myself, but it's hard not to respect what Theo and Jed Hoyer have done here.
Fair enough. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of big bats coming up through the system. You got one pitching prospect who's got a really high ceiling in the organization?
Yeah, you know, the Cubs are a little light on the pitching side of things, but they do have some bright spots, and one of those being C.J. Edwards. He's kind of an electric arm from a small frame guy. Think of Yordano Ventura, Carlos Martinez, guys who just bring filthy stuff. But the ultimate profile is questionable because, you know, he's pitching from a 160, 175-pound frame. You wonder how that's going to hold up over a full season workload.
Interesting. So now I got to ask you, who do you root for? Team Razzball, obviously, but who's your team?
You know, I'm at the point in my baseball watching career where I root for my fantasy guys, but I grew up a Cardinals fan, and they're still my team. So I'm doing pretty well in that regard.
That's fair. I respect that. Yeah, absolutely. And your Twitter handle, again, because I always mess it up, is?
Scott_Razzball.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We worked on it last year.
For you.
So Scott_Razzball. Hit him up on Twitter. You got prospect questions. You play in Dynasty, Keeper Leagues. You want ETAs for the majors. Go back and look at his stuff. Oh, sorry. One more, just before we go. And you know, I really want to ask this because I'm really thirsty. So the fact that I'm postponing quenching my thirst right now, Oscar Taveras makes me crazy because he's so talented. He reminds me of Vladimir Guerrero. When am I going to see this guy? Because I've got him stashed everywhere, and I'm just burning a roster spot, but I can't let go of love.
You know, it's a good question. Taveras has been, his health's been a mess for the past year.
Yes.
The ankle injury kept him out almost all last year. Early on this spring training, hamstring kept him out. So he had no real shot at making the club out of spring training, but he's at AAA right now. I think the Cardinals are looking for him to get a full month or two healthy production at AAA before they summon him up to St. Louis. And also, they don't really have a clear path for him to playing time. So I think you'll see him this year, provided he's healthy. I'm not sure how big an impact he's going to play. That depends on whether guys like Alan Craig, Matt Adams, and Matt Holliday can stay healthy.
They're already having a good time. They must be the craft beers. Hey, Scott, thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it. Scott_Razzball. Seriously, guys, you know, if you love prospects, and of course you do, that's half the fun of playing fantasy baseball. This is the guy you want to follow. All right, can we go have a beer now?
Yeah.
I gotta go. This is over. It's over. It's done. I'm going. Bye. Beer. Hey, Razzball, it's Nick. We made it to St. Louis, and we're at DB Sports Bar downtown right now. And we would love to take you inside, but how can I put this? The waitresses are scantily clad. I'll leave it at that. So we can't actually take it inside. But I'll tell you this, if you're ever in St. Louis, you definitely want to come in here. There are no writers here today, so we're not going to give you any updates, but it is packed actually with Razzball readers. It's really exciting. We got an amazing turnout in St. Louis. Of course, big baseball city. It's opening night for the Cardinals, and instead of going to the game, they're here with us. So we're going to go inside and show these guys a good time. If we can get any footage inside, I promise you I will try. Or if we wind up somewhere else, that'll let us. But we're in a neighborhood that is a lot of fun right now. Oh, there's a bunny over there. All right, so we're still at DB's. We still can't tape inside, but you know what? I dragged Fausto out, regular commenter on Razzball.com. He's our fixer here in St. Louis. Fausto, I got to tell you, man, I am blown away by St. Louis. I mean, this is a really cool city.
It is a cool city. A lot of cool stuff. You know, we got the arch. That's great. Piece of metal. No, I'm joking. We got the brewery, Anheuser-Busch here. You know, we got
But that stadium is unbelievable. I mean, we drove past it today. Of course, it's opening day for the Cardinals today. I mean, it was spectacular. I was really impressed with it.
It's definitely an upgrade over Busch 2, which is what we call it here, Busch 2. It's got the retro theme, you know, fits in with the bridges downtown, whatever, you know. It's cool.
And how do you get away in this town wearing a Cubs cap?
I get away with that not very easily, but you know.
Just to piss people off?
So it pisses a lot of people off. I do have a soft spot for the Cubs. I'd like to see them win World Series, to be honest with you.
All right, I won't hold it against you. All right, we're running out of light here, so real quick, man. Everyone says we got to eat toasted ravioli in St. Louis. Is that a fact?
It's a fact if you don't. If you've never had it, if you haven't grown up eating it, it's a fact. You have to eat toasted ravioli and provolone cheese. If you've grown up eating it, you're probably sick of it by the age of 30. But if you've never been to St. Louis, toasted ravioli and Provel cheese are must tries.
Beautiful. Last question, man. How many years you been reading Razzball?
Razzball, I have been officially 3 years reading Razzball. 2 years playing fantasy baseball.
You were reading Razzball before you started playing?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's an interesting story.
Yes,
and I'm going to
sir.
hear about it, but you won't, because I want to go back into the
I got a
scantily
Cubs
clad
fan, I don't
waitresses.
respect.
Loves dick jokes.
Fausto, man. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go have a good time in St. Louis. I'm amped up for tonight.